Now we're on Daf Chavtes Amud Beis. The Gemara now is focused on the following scenario. In a carbon mincha, where the main avoda is kmitza, and it has to be performed by day, the Gemara had already established on Daf Chavtes Amud Aleph that based on a brisa of Avud Rabbi Oven, if the kmitza of the mincha was implemented at night, that's it. It's possible, and the law is tisareh. The Gemara doesn't understand this. Nahadre, v'nahader, v'nikmitza, v'yamama. Why don't we simply put the flour that he did kmitza on back into the pile, mix it all together in one blila, and wait till morning, and after daybreak, do a kmitza. Why are you telling me that the mincha has to be burnt? There's no justification for that. We understand very well that in the case of malika or shchita, once you did the malika or the shchita at night, that's irreplaceable. You can't resuscitate the animal, bring it back to life, and implement a substitute shchita or malika. But in the case of a mincha, ribono shel olam, why don't you just take the kmitza, wait till the morning, put it back together again, and do a new kmitza? Why is there a psul beguf hakarbo? That's really what this sugya that we're about to embark upon is all about. Is there a psul beguf hakarbo? I understand it very well in Shchita Malika. I don't understand it in the case of Kmitza. And the Gemara answers, Hu Tani La V'Hu Amar La. Avua de Rabbi Oven was the one who taught the brisa, and he now explains the brisa. And that is that this brisa is predicated on a principle about Kli Sharetz. Kli Sharetz Makachim Afilu Shalo Bisman. Now, the classic example of this principle regarding Kli Sharetz is with regard to a psul lina, which means the following, that once you have a carbon that was sanctified, you're not allowed to leave it overnight. But basically, what we're saying here is that there's a process called sanctification, kiddush. Now, obviously, if I asked you what's the agenda, what's the purpose of kiddush, you would tell me in order to be makrivin on the mizbeach. You can't bring on the mizbeach chulin b'azorah. But there's a flip side to the equation, and that is that as a result of kiddush, now any psul can be chal on the carbon, meaning what you do to the carbon or the mincha or whatever it might be, the oath, before kiddush, that's irrelevant. That's chol. It's not kodesh. Once it's kodesh, now if you tamper with it in the improper way, then you generate a psul beguf hadov. And Kli Sharetz Makachim, once you place the solace of the mincha into a Kli Sharetz, the Kli Sharetz will now sanctify that mincha. And then if you do a kmitza at night, the kmitza at night passes the mincha. You see the paradox here. On the one hand, we're saying that Kli Sharetz is makadesh, but the end result of the kiddush is psul. Right? Kiddush is for the purpose of bringing it on the mizbeach, not chas v'shalom to passel. But kiddush also, on the flip side, once having generated the kedusha, the kiddush, now it's subject to all the psulim, and one of those psulim is kmitza v'layla. So therefore, the brisa of Avua de Rabbi Oven, reflecting the shita that Kli Sharetz is makadesh, is now you cannot take the kmitza, put it back into the mincha and start from scratch, because the kmitza itself now passes the mincha insofar as it took place at night. But this is a big chiddush. because as we're going to prove from a brisa, we don't accept such a principle. What do you mean? A kli sharis can be mekadesh? A kli sharis can be mekadesh within a certain time frame. If now is the time for kiddush, for the avoda nakrov al gabi mizbeach, then kli sharis is mekadesh. But at night, when there's no possibility of bringing a mincha on the mizbeach, then the kli sharis cannot be mekadesh. Hence, it cannot generate a psul when the kmitza was implemented at night. Meisvei, I'll prove it to you through a brisa. Ze'akla. We have the following rule: Kol hakorev bayom, kadosh bayom. If you sanctify something on that day, it is sanctified for whatever avoda that you have to do during the course of the day. And if on the other hand, kol hakorev balayla, let's say, for example, a varim and pdarim can be burnt on the mizbech at night, is then kadosh balayla. Then you can sanctify the Avarim and Pdarim, and it'll be Kaddish for the entire night. But Kol HaKorev, Bein Bayom, Bein Alayla, if you have something that you can be makriv both by day and by night, then Kadosh, Bein Bayom, Bein Balayla. Once it's a kiddush process, that will work, and that'll be valid for both day and night. So let's just review quickly the rules, and then we'll see the Gemara's deal. The first rule is that if a carbon is brought by day, then the kiddush has to take place by day. 2, if a carbon is brought at night, then the kiddush can be effectuated by day or by night. That's what Rashi seems to say. Says the Gemara, funny, Mias, let's read this brisa carefully. It says, Kol HaKoreh Bayom. Kadosh Bayom, it means Bayom in Balayla lo. The Kiddush process during the day can travel, can be continued during the entire day, but not Balayla. And therefore, what you see is that Kar Bayom, Hikr Bayom is Kadosh Bayom. That which is brought on the Mizbeach Bayom, you can be Mekadosh it by day, but only by day. You cannot be Mekadosh it Balayla. So let's say I did a Kiddush Balayla for an Avoda, a Krav of day. It's not valid. And the reason for that is that even if I put it into a Kli Shares does not have the power to be Mekadosh Shalom Bizmano, meaning at night for a day of Voda. So let's go back to the brisa of Rabbi Ovid, the Abba Shal Rabbi Ovid. In a case of a kmitza at night, it should, Passel the korban? How can a kmitza by night be passel the korban? Where's the kiddush? You can tell me the kiddush was b'kli sharetz. How can you have a kiddush b'kli sharetz of a mincha at night when it's not royal akrova by night? We have to wait till tomorrow until it'll be akrova. So once again, we're back to square one. In the case of kmitza b'layla, what you should do is just simply take the komets, put it back into the mixture, mix it up again, and tomorrow you'll do the kmitza. Why didn't you tell me tisaret? You're going to answer because the klisharis was makadosh. The klisharis can't be makadosh at night. It's shalom bizmano. So the Gemara says, now, in my humble opinion, there is no way you can learn the next Gemara, the Gemara's answer, without being a brisker. You know, they say that in brisk, Kodshim was like their specs. That Kodshim lends itself, fits to the brisker derech like like a glove and a ball in a glove. And I think, in my humble opinion, this is a perfect example. The Gemara says there are tzvei dinim here, as Reb Chaim used to call it. Eino kodesh li karev, avol kodesh li posel. When we talk about kiddush in a klishares, we have two dimensions. We sort of hinted at it before. There's kodesh li karev, It's got a full-fledged kedusha, total kedusha, kiddush gamur, such that now we can makriv on the mizbeach. There's another element in the process of kiddush, which is just lipasa. It's considered kodesh. It's not kodesh gamur. You can't be makriv on the mizbeach, but now it's suspect or subject to all the psulim. That level of kiddush for psul can be achieved, and the nafkamina is going to be kiddush b'kli shares shalom b'zmano. When you put the mincha into a kli shares at night, it's shalom b'zmano, which means now that the kiddush power of the kli shares cannot effectuate preparing this mincha for akrava, because for that you need a kiddush during the zman of akrava, which means by day. But it does suffice to generate a kiddush and sanctify the mincha such that now the mincha is subject to all the psulim, like, for example, kmitza v'layla or any other pasuk. Also, Rav Zera is now going to ask from a Mishnah. This is a Mishnah at the end of Masechet Menachos. It says, Sider es halechem es habzichin achar Shabbos. Now, every Shabbos, they would organize the new lechem, the lechem aponim on the shulchan, together with the shnei bazichin that had 2 spoonfuls of frankincense of levona. But in this particular case, unfortunately, what the Kohanim did was they organized the lechem and the bazichin after Shabbos. That's called shalom bizmano. And then the hiktiras of bazichin b'Shabbos. On the following Shabbos, they were maktir the bazichin, meaning the levona, al gabi mizbeach, psula. Okay, we understand that very well. It's all possible because the sidur must take place on Shabbos. In this case, the sidur took place after Shabbos. Okay. Ketzad yasa. What can he do to rectify this situation where they were misader the lechem and the bazichin after Shabbos? Shalom izmana. Ketzad yasa, you're asking me in this brisa what to do? Yanichenu l'Shabbos haba. All you have to do is wait till the following Shabbos, and then you could put the lechem aponim back on the shulchan. You'll add some new volume of levona. Shafilu of the shulchan yomim rabin. I couldn't care less, even if the lechem aponim stood on the table for many days. Ein bekach klum. I don't have to be bothered. I don't get it. Amai tikdosh v'tipasel. If you tell me that there are 2 dinim in kiddush kli, one is likarev and the other is lipasel, then when he placed the lechem aponim on the shulchan after Shabbos, which is shalom bizmano, then the shulchan as a paradigmic case of a klishares would certainly sanctify the lechem aponim, at least lipasel. How then can the Mishnah allow you to bring this lechem aponim back on the shulchan the following Shabbos? And this is an open shut mincha in Mishnah in Masechet Menachos. Amarava madika mosiv shapir kamosiv. In other words, this kasha Rabbi Zera, it is a TKO. There's nothing that we could do to answer this kasha. And our interpretation of the previous brisa, based on the distinction between tigdosh lipasel and tigdosh likarev, cannot be maintained in the light of this Mishnah in Menachos that addresses the case of lechem aponim that were placed on the shulchan after Shabbos. The avua de Rabbi Ovin Nami masnisa ka'oma. And even the father of Rabbi Oven, who brought this brisa, is stating a teaching of the Tanoim. In other words, what the Gemara is saying here, according to Rava, is that we have some statement in Amoraim that can be reconciled, but not statement in Tanoim. Let's hold off for just a minute. I think the Gemara is going to clarify this. What does it mean? Nami mastisa ka'oma. Because Samar, in other words, the Tana of the Brisa holds that Laila ain mechusas man, whereas Yom is mechusas man. Here's what he says. Aviv shel Rabbi Oven gam kein divrei habrisa kom, and that's a shita that has to be reckoned with. It's a Tanoic statement. Ein lanu lifrok dvarav midivrei Mishnah o brisa. Okay, we have a Mishnah that contradicts. The brisa is entitled to its own opinion. Ulefi shelo omar dvarav kishmua b'pi amoroyim ela hevia divrei brisa va'anu yesh lanu liyashev shelo yisteru divrei tanoim zem zeh. Again, as far as the brisa of Rabbi Oven is concerned, you can't ask a stira to this brisa based on a Mishnah or another brisa, because that brisa is entitled to its own opinion. But if, on the other hand, you want to set up a reconciliation with the various statements of the Tanoim, then this is the way we're going to explain it. There's no machlokas between the Tanoim regarding chisaron's man. Every Tana agrees that in a case of chisaron's man, a kli sharis cannot be makadesh. However, the Tana that was quoted by Aviv shel Rabbi Oven, Kasavar, he's of the opinion that a mincha becomes disqualified because of kmitzas Laila. You know why? Because Laila ain't mechusas man. The relationship between Laila and the successive Yom, the succeeding Yom, is not called mechusas man. And as far as Kiddush B'Kli Shares, the mincha that had a kmitza b'Laila, since tomorrow, the day that follows this night, is going to be the Zman HaKmitza, then we don't apply the principle of the Chisaron of Mechusar Zman. And therefore, it could be Makadosh the Komets the very moment it was placed in the Kli Sharetz. But Yom, if you have something that Zman is only Yom, not something of Laila that's anticipating Yom, is Mechusar Zman. That's when we apply the principle of the Chisaron of Zman, as far as Kiddush Kli is concerned. Now, therefore, Lechem Aponim, which is placed on the first day, and it doesn't have a Zman until the next Shabbos, in such a case, for sure, the Shulchan cannot be Mekadesh, and therefore it's not possible. Kosher liskadesh b'Shabbos habo. We can just simply put away these lechem aponim, stash it away till next Shabbos. Why? Because we can apply the principle of ein klishares mekadesh shalom b'zman. And now we're dealing with a real shalom b'zman, because You can't talk about Kiddush Klishares in Lechem upon him when we have to wait till next Shabbos. But in a case where there's an avoda of Yom and you proceeded and you went ahead and you did the avoda at Lila, then we can apply the principle of Eina Mechus Zman, and it could possibly go. Gemara now raises the following objection. You're telling me that Lila before the day is not called Mechus Zman. If that would be correct, then Ein HaLechem Nifsal Miyad. The lechem should not become possible immediately. She'ein miskadesh b'shulchan is ki moti bei shimshei tigdosh v'tifsa. When Bein Hashmoshes comes of Leil Shabbos Harishon, then the lechem should become sanctified because immediately tomorrow that's the Zman Avodah. And your principle was that Lila before the day is not called Mechus Zman. Amar Ravina Shekada V'Silko. We're talking about a case where he took the lechem off the shulchan on Erev Shabbos before nightfall. And since on Leil Shabbos it wasn't on the shulchan, therefore Lois Kaddish, it doesn't get sanctified because it's not on the shulchan. And once it's not sanctified, Lo Nifsal. Right? The flip side of that paradox that we spoke about before, it doesn't become possible. Therefore, on the next day, you can put it Kilchasa together with the Bazichin back on the shulchan. Mar Zutra v'Tamer of Ashnomar Afilu Tamer Bishalo Kana Masilko Kevon Shesidro Shalo Kimitzvaso Nasik Mosidro Kof. In other words, this is not a Maisa of an Avodah. You know, you put it on the shulchan, okay, but it's not the Zman yet, so nothing happened. You take it off the shulchan, put it back on. He calls it a Maisa Kof. Fine. So now, just to summarize, he says here, it's Ki'ilu Shenosan Sham Halechem Shalom Idaito V'Ein Zu Nesina Klal Ve'Eino Yachol Halechem L'Skadish Al Yoda Af Mishigia Hazman. Now the Mishnah says Zak Klal Hayav Migdash, that if a person urinates, he needs Kiddush Yadayim Raglayim Bichlema Raglayim. I understand why he has to wash his feet. Mishum needs sotzos, that there are drops of urine that fell on his feet. Eliadai, my timer, why does he have to wash his hands? He didn't do anything with his hands. Omar Rabbi Abba, Zoso Meres, we have to derive a certain din that you need to be Mekadesh, also your diet. And mitzvah l'shafshin. There is a mitzvah now to clean up any nitzotzos of meraglayim that fell on his feet before he leaves the Beis HaKisa. And once he's cleaning up the urine, then his hands become dirty with urine, soiled with urine. And therefore, he has to undergo a kiddush after he urinates. And all this is based on the fact that he's going to have to clean off the nitzotzos, these droplets of urine that fell on his legs. The Sayele, the Rabbi Ami. From here, we can bring a proof to Rabbi Ami. The Omer Rabbi Ami, also the Olam Sheyetze, b'nitzotzos shal gabi raglov. Person is not allowed to leave a bathroom without first cleaning off the droplets of urine. And a krus shavcha is someone who cannot possibly have children, and he's not allowed to marry into the Jewish faith. And if we're going to say that a person is going to clean up the tzotzos from Gabi Raglov, it looks as if the nitzotzos fell and they were zorem bekiluach. I'm sorry, they weren't zorem bekiluach, but rather they were notfit. They were dripping down onto his feet, and people are going to say that he is a krus shvach. I'll just read to you the English translation of krus shvacha. He calls it just 1 second. Sorry, why am I finding this? Oh, here it is. Krus shvacha. Here on the top of Daf Lamed. He says, a person with a cut member. In other words, his general area was crushed. And then umotzi laz al bonav shehem mamzerim. He's incapable of having children. And if his wife had children, people are going to say, how could she have become pregnant? It must have been from another man. And they're going to suspect that children are mamzer. As we close the shir, I just want to go back to the bottom of Chavtes on the base and call your attention, focus your attention to the words V'avua de Rabbi Ovin nami maslisa ka'amar. As we said before, Rabbi Ovin, even though you have a kash on his brisa, that doesn't matter because even if it's a stira, he wasn't quoting Amoraim, he was quoting a brisa Tana. And then it says ukasavar. So that we perhaps didn't emphasize before. Kasavar means that the brisa of Avua de Rabbi Ovin holds that Laila ain't mechusas man. Yom is mechusas man. And here he has a note. He says, since the flour, the kemach, normally would be sanctified in the clay sharis the following morning, that's the proper time for the mincha. And since night commences the day, in other words, the night after the day is a different day, but the day follows the night before it. Therefore, according to this Tana that's quoted by Avua de Rabbi Ovin, the Klisharis is able to makadish the flour at night, even with regard to rendering it susceptible to invalidation, meaning that it now could become possible. And that's why the brisa cited by Rabbi Oven's father ruled that the flour that was subject to kmitza at night must be burned. There's no way that you can salvage by just simply mixing together the flour and starting again from scratch, because there was a kiddush with klisharetz leap us. And that's because Laila is not considered mechusas man vis-a-vis the following day. If a klisharis is used for an avoda whose time is not until the following day, then the klisharis, this footnote I don't understand. It says if the klisharis is used for an avoda and the zman is not until the following. I'm not sure how to read this. Let me give it another minute to see if I can figure that out. See what he means by the following day means another day down the line. It doesn't mean following the night before. If it follows the night before it, then we are arguing now, according to the Tana of this price, Rabbi Ovid, that it is not considered mechusas man, and therefore it's makadishly possible. But in a case like, for example, the brisa that we discussed about the lechem aponim, actually the mission that we discussed about the lechem aponim, there it's the following day, which means that the avod is not until the following Shabbos, and therefore when you place the lechem upon him on the shulchan, and you want to say that the kli shares, the shulchan should be makadesh the lechem li pasel. No, no, no. We're not going to say that because that's certainly mechusar zman according to everyone, because you're going from Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, whatever day of the week until Shabbos. That's called the following day. Again, if I had written this footnote, I think I could have done a better job. It's a little bit ambiguous. Okay, then. So, tomorrow we start on Daf Lam.